Hey y'all, Zoomers, glad you're there. Thank you for being there. And hello y'all. And it's only one of me today, it's not us, so thank you. And I am glad to be here, and today is step 8 and 9, and I am Laura. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is February 23rd, 2013. I have a sponsor, she's here, and I have sponsees, and one of them just walked in, and my sponsees have sponsees. So I'm in the middle of the program, grateful to be here, and I would like to start this meeting today, please, with a prayer, just to get us all in the right frame of mind. God, today, help me set aside everything I think I know about you, everything I think I know about myself, everything I think I know about others, and everything I think I know about my own recovery, so that I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Amen. Okay, a quick recap for those of you who have not been along this journey with us, since we have covered 7 steps previously. Step 1 was surrender. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. I drank too much for too long. It was a lot of binge drinking, and at 50, I knew that I was drinking myself to death. And so I knew that I had to stop drinking. So I started to try and manage my drinking. And it really escalated to the point where it was uncontrollable, and I did not know when I started to drink when I was going to end. And so I had a very bad experience one night at the beach, and I called my brother Charlie, who was sober, and he got me to an AA meeting the next day. I heard what I needed to hear at that AA meeting, and I found hope. Then they sent me home to read Dr. Bill's story and the doctor's opinion. I found what I needed in there in a higher power, and I went to a couple of meetings, and I found a sponsor, and she worked with me further, and we got to the 3rd step, and I made this 3rd step prayer. And I learned during that to turn my will over to God. And I had told you all about the ring. I turned my ring, a family ring, and I was at a 6-week business meeting, and I constantly turned my will over during that business trip. And I came back from an all-expense paid business trip sober, and worked through that. And then step 4 and 5, I did my 4th step exactly as prescribed. It took me a little bit. I turned it in with a Post-it note the first time. And, but eventually I did it exactly as the book prescribed. And I got through the 4th step, and then we did a very tearful 5th step, which is admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being, the exact nature of our wrongs. And so that was the first time I had been intimately honest with someone about the nature of my wrongs. And so she helped me look at those things that I had done wrong with some compassion and with some true eyes. And so I could look at my part in a lot of the things that I had done. And so there I could actually see myself and see the things I had done honestly, and see some of my character patterns and some of my character defects for the first time. Step 6, willingness. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. I sat quietly and looked at the work I had done through step 1 through 5. And I had done all of that work well. And I had built a quality arch, right? The construction work of an arch. And I had realized that my defects of character were now obstacles to my serenity and my sobriety. And I needed to get rid of those obstacles. And I was ready to ask God to remove those obstacles and humbly ask him, because I was not in a position to demand things anymore. So I humbly asked God to remove those things. And then in doing that, I would change my life and the way I reacted to things. I would no longer react, I would respond. So I would constantly have this seesaw, right? I'm going to react or I'm going to respond. I'm going to react with fear or I'm going to react with courage. I'm going to react with love or I'm going to react with demands. So I always had this seesaw of what am I going to do? And it's my choice on how I'm going to live my life. So there's step 7. So I am now in a position of I need freedom because of those people that were on my 4th step. And I wore red, white, and blue today because it's the 4th of July. And this is also the freedom step. So we are going to make a list of all people we had harmed, and we became willing to make amends to them all. So we're going to go back and we're going to get our first clues from the 4th step. And so we're going to get those. But this step is about love, and it's about loving others enough to say, we've changed, and I want to change the way I've treated you, and I want to change the way I feel about you, and I want to change the way you feel about me. And so it's going to take a lot of courage, and it's going to take accountability from you and your sponsor, right? Because you're going to want to be you're embarrassed and not want to do those things. And so it's going to take humility, compassion, forgiveness, and most of all, it's going to take willingness, because you're going to have to really be willing to say, I'm going to do this amends, and look at yourself and say, I really did do this person dirty, and be willing to go and say, what can I do to make it right? Amends is not necessarily saying I'm sorry to people. It's more about your character has changed. Your behavior has changed. Your nature has changed. So you're going to go to this person and say, I'm living a new life now. I did you dirty. What can I do to make it right? They may not even know you did them dirty. So, you're going to say, that job you lost, this, that was because of me. And I want to make it right. And so, and the response may not be pleasant, and you have to be willing and to put up with that. So, so you're going to be looking at that list and those things where you have done in your life. And if there are names on that list that you can't put on the list or you won't put on the list, just continue to pray for willingness on that. We're not all saints here. So you're going to continue to grow, and you're going to continue to get closer to God as you continue your walk. And I know that there are people that have ended up like, oh, I really do, because I didn't think of it, because there's still things, shields on my eyes where I can't see because I can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. And God knows what's on my heart and what I can handle. So he guides me down the road as, one thing at a time. And so, I do what I can do, at 8 months sober, at 9 months sober, and I do what I can do. So I have this list, and it's made, and I review it with my sponsor, and I put my name on that list because I have been very irresponsible, and I've been very self-destructive. And so I'm going to have to learn to do a lot of self-love and a lot of self-care. And those things are very foreign to me. But I put my name on the list because, as I've told you all through these steps, I was a dumpster fire and I had a big, huge fortress up. And I needed to be able to take care of the internal part of my dumpster fire because I'm a big crate of ashes, and I have to figure out how to rebuild myself internally. So So I've got a list. I don't know what my amends are going to be. So we move on to step 9, because the list is long or it could be short. It just depends. But you just have to put the list together. Then you sit down with your sponsor and you talk about, okay, here's the list. And these are the things I did. What are the appropriate amends? Because you and I are just going to say, oh, I'm just going to give them a phone call. I'm going to send them a text. Well, you didn't do these amends via text. you did them face to face. You might have done them back, in their back, but you can't stand behind them and say, I'm sorry, let me have a nice note. You have to go to them face to face, and do these texts face to face. And they're not over the phone. They have to be face to face. And a lot of times, some of these people are dead. And so you might need to write a letter to them just to get what's on your heart off. And some of these people, it's not safe for you to be face to face with them. And you and your sponsor will decide, what's the right appropriate thing for you to do there. So, here it is, make direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. So I'm not driving the bus. This is very prayerful. I am having my sponsor guide me. I'm leaving this up to God because the timing is very much God driven, and you'll hear, because I'm going to give you a couple of examples about how God driven this is. And these things will work themselves out a lot of times in God's time. But some of them you're going to say, oh, God has to do this timing, and it's just you procrastinating. So your sponsor is going to stay on you and make sure that you get these done and you're not going to procrastinate. That's why it's important to do this under the guidance with a sponsor. When we were there, we listed all these things down. And so, I talked to you a lot about I padded my IBM expense account, right? So I really couldn't call IBM and say, hey. So we talked about what was the right thing to do. So for the rest of my tenure at IBM, I never reported mileage and I never put any petty cash or petty expenses in. Just didn't do it for the rest of my tenure. So that was a way for me to make amends. And of course I wasn't drinking anymore, so that was saving them a lot. That was just, that was my way to make a financial amends to them. And, because I couldn't, go and because I couldn't unknit that sweater. There was no way I could go through and unknit that sweater. So, that was one example of how to do that. And we talked, and that was, I was going to start that immediately, So, and then we rehearsed some scenarios about, and then these are some of the things that I've done, I've rehearsed with my sponsees, hey, I did X to you, what can I do to make it right? And then you just sit there and be quiet, and it just, you can fill in what X is, it could be anything. So, but you sit there and be quiet and let the other person respond. And, that's hard because sometimes, and then when they do respond, they've got some doozies for answers, So, or I ran up a $450 bar tab, what can I do? Pay it back if you're banned. Well, I don't drink anymore, so banning me is not that big of a deal. I've kited 3 checks at the grocery store. What can I do? And obviously pay it back. And so these financial amends and these sorts of things are sort of scenarios that you will go through with your sponsor. I stole money from Goodwill. What do I do? Make the donation 3 times. So it's all these sort of little scenarios that you'll talk through with your sponsor about when to do these. And some of these are, you may not have the money to pay back Goodwill now. So it's like, okay, then, when you do have the money, you're going to do that. Or you put $5 and, we're going to pay $150. You sold $50, so you're going to pay $150 back. And you just put $5 in, until you've made that contribution back. So these are all done with your sponsor at times. So, and sometimes, they're just living amends. You're going to do things and live your life differently. If you're constantly having, stealing or dining and dashing, those are kind of your things to do, stop those behaviors, just stop them. And, but a lot of people, I had a sponsee that just loved to steal. She just loved it. It was something so fun. And it was like, and I didn't know she did that until like a year. She was a sponsee for a year. She wasn't anywhere on this. And then she was like, she admitted to me on Saturday, she's like, I've been stealing. I was like, what? And she goes, yeah, I do it every Saturday. I'm like, why? She goes, I did a high one. It's like, that's like pot. You can't do that. And so, we sat down, how much have you stolen? What have you done? Where have you been? What have you, we added it all up and it was a lot of money. And so, first of all, it was like, call me before you get the urge. And then let's write about why you need that excitement. And then let's stop stealing. That's a behavior that you need to stop doing. And then you need to go back and you need to figure out how you pay these stores back, So, you don't want to go to the Dollar General and say, I've stolen $900 because you don't want to get the handcuffs, the bracelets. You don't want the free bracelets. So, we just figured out that you need to, And so, we figured out that she was going to do some sort of charity work and some sort of service work to kind of equal that out. And so that's how that worked out. But, this is God's work, and he's going to edit the list as he sees fit. So here are a couple of my amends and how they went. I thought you might find this illuminating. So one of my amends was when I left Clearwater, we closed the company down. And, it closed and, very quickly. And so there was one of our girls that, she was a woman, but she was one of the people that did all of the facilitating of the movement of our equipment. And she was absolutely vital to our operation. And she basically shut everything down and left. And I know she left feeling like a piece of crap. And she was so vital to our operation. And she moved and never knew where she was. And I always wanted to tell her how appreciated she was and how vital she was to our organization and how important she was to me personally. And she just vaporized, and I never got a chance to tell her how important she was to us as a company because she was the cog in the wheel. And she moved millions of dollars of equipment. And she was, she was in charge of everything, all the floor planning and everything. So she was gone. And, so here it is 20 years later, and I still feel guilty about how she was treated, and I never got a chance to be kind to her and thank her for how valuable her service was to the success of our company. And so she was on my list, that I had been careless with my emotions and I had been, maybe egotistical because when I stayed with the board of directors and the chair people and the executives, and I didn't go back to the back room and spend as much time with those people because they were, we were trying to get the money sorted and the bank sorted and all of that as we were closing the company. So I put that down there that I had been careless with her feelings and I had felt really bad about her. So, she was on the never list because I could never find her. I didn't know where she had just evaporated, but I really did want to tell her and make amends to her because she was important to me. And so, never list, because I'd never be able to do it. So I am, maybe, I don't know, a week later, I am flying to California for work and we stopped somewhere in the middle, Texas, Austin or something. I'm changing planes. And I'm stuck in the middle seat, not really happy about it. And I've got my big book because I'm reading the Serenity Prayer, just trying to be not unhappy about stuck in the center seat for 4 hours. And and I'm praying that the window seat is not taken. And so all of a sudden somebody says, excuse me, I'm in the window seat. So, I huff, take my bike seat off, throw my big book in, get out of the thing. And don't look, just sit and just, go. So, and then she gets in and I get back in, pick my big book up, put it down. And as she puts it down, as I put it down, she goes, was that a big book? I was like, yeah, it was. And then I look at her and it's like, oh my God, it's Never Never Girl. And I could not believe it. So hugs, and the lady's like, see, put your seatbelts on. And, all of a sudden I just couldn't believe, And so she goes, I picked up a white chip yesterday. not only is it Never Never Girl, but she has locusts. And so we sit down and she's like, I really don't know, what, I picked up a white chip. And so we start talking about, and I tell her, I have, a little bit of sobriety and, maybe 8-9 months sobriety. And I just start telling her about my experience, strength and hope. And I tell her about Bill's story, the doctor's story. I tell her about circling me in the big book. And, I'm pretty committed to Bill's story, so I tell her how I read Bill's story and how fascinated I was by it and how I related to all of those things and how I put in the margins, So I'm telling her all of these things and she's like, wow. And then she's like, I kept trying to quit drinking and I couldn't. And I said, were you drunk by 4 o'clock every day when you tried to quit? She grabs my arm, she goes, yes, how did you know? And I was like, because I was too. And so it was the most amazing amends, And I was just saying, I was just talking to my sponsor about you and saying, you have been on my heart for years because I really wanted to come and tell you how much I valued you and how important you were. And, you made our company go. You were just a big part of our company. So anyway, so that was my first amends that I made. Not one of the easy ones, but that was the Never Never. And that was how God edits your list and how God changes things. It was unbelievable that was how that turned out. I am another one is my family, and this is a living amends. I've told you that we have a pretty complex family, and so we have grown up, and I think a lot of you have big families. You all have a fighting tendency. You infight, you bicker, and you complain, and so my little sister, because she was my stepmother's youngest child, I do believe my mom recruited her to try and help raise the 4 Bohemians, the 4 of us. And so she had a habit of tattling, and so she felt it was up to her to police whenever we were doing anything. So here I am, 59 years old, and I'm at the beach house helping. She was at the beach house I went to go visit, and it was winter time, and we was just coming into spring, and we needed to kind of scrub winter off of all the outdoor patio furniture. And so she said, Laura, can you scrub the patio furniture? I was like, sure, I don't care. And so our habit is in the morning, we get all the chores done so we can enjoy the afternoon. So she's like, hey, can you do the patio furniture? I was like, sure. I don't mind. I've been cleaning patio furniture. So, I get the Clorox out, I get the soap out, and I get the hose out and get the scrub brush out, and I'm happily scrubbing the winter off of the patio furniture. And I'd done the beachside furniture, and now I'm on the street side furniture, and that's got like a table and a couple of chaise lounges and cafe table and 4 chairs. And so have done all of that, and I'm on the last 2 chairs, and she comes, I can hear her stomping on the chair, the steps around the corner, and she's like, what are you doing? I was like, it's pretty obvious, I'm washing it. She's, what are you using? It's like, I'm using a hose, bleach, and soap, and a scrub brush. Well, why is the hose on? It's like, so I can rinse because, well, you're putting water down the hill. It's like, yeah, it rains, it goes down the hill. Water goes down the hill. That's normal. And she goes, well, you can't put water down the hill. It's bad for plants. It's said, well, plants need water. And so she's like questioning, you can't use Clorox, it's bad for the hill. You can't use soap, it's bad for the hill. You can't leave the water on, it's bad for the hill. And so I'm like, well, how else would you wash the chairs? I've been washing these chairs for 20 years. I don't know how else. Well, you're supposed to use water and vinegar. It's better for the hill. And so, and you're supposed to turn the water off every time. I'm like, good, you do that next time. And so I was very curt with her, and I said, good, you do that next time. And it was like end of discussion. I was not going to argue with her about which products to use or how to wash a chair, but she clearly wanted to get into instructing me on how to wash a chair while I'm 59 years old. And she's a littler one, but she's a very earth-friendly, freaky person, and has a completely different idea of how to, and me, I'm better living through chemicals. And I'm using a lot of water and I'm diluting everything, and so it's not hurting the hill, and when it rains, the water goes down the hill. So it's like, I'm not hurting anything. And it rains every day at 4. So if I put too much Clorox on the hill, it's going to rain today. So what I did though was I was very, very curt and said, you can do it your way next time. I've only got 2 more chairs to finish. And I was just done. I dismissed her, And what I would normally have done, and I just finished my chairs, put everything away, and just was done with it. Ordinarily, what I would have done is super soaked her, gave her the F-bomb, told her where she could go, stomped off, had a stiff drink, and it would have caused a huge family fight. She would have gone to get reinforcements, and she would have made a law that there's no Clorox outside, So it was just, it was that ability for me to react and not respond. It was for me to have a boundary where I normally wouldn't have one. She could just seep in and judge me and do everything she wants around me. So I had a boundary. It's my balloon. I'm doing my job. You don't have a right to be here, right? And let me finish what I'm doing. And I just ended the discussion because I'm doing a job. You don't have a right to, to say these things. So that was, all of those things I had to learn in AA. And a little bit of Al-Anon and a little bit of alcoholics, adult children of alcoholics. Because had I not put all of that work in prior to this experience, and those were my amends, is putting all that studying in and all of those different meetings in, was I would have reacted instead of responded. And so I still have to do that amends every time I'm with my family, every Thanksgiving, every Easter, every funeral, every single time I'm with my family, I have to practice those principles and practice that behavior. It doesn't end, it didn't end there. It ends every time I'm with a family member. Mostly I can do it. I don't have to practice that so much when it's just one, but it's 2 or more. When there's a pack mentality, right? There's 2 or more against one, it occurs. And so I have to be aware and I have to be, practiced up and be aware that I'm going into this. But it gives me freedom that I don't have to be afraid in that environment that I'm going to come out destroyed. I can come out happy, joyous, and free. Because I'm not an emotional hangover when I leave that. So it helps me, and that's the amends I make to myself for self-care and self-love. And so not only is it me helping the family heal, because I'm not allowing a big Donnybrook to create, right? But I'm also helping myself amends because I'm not creating internal turmoil and strife, knowing that there's serenity and I can keep serenity by not reacting. I can respond and I can choose the way I respond. So that was something that that was huge. It's hard. It's not an easy amends for me to make. It's a hard one. And then my last example I'll give you is an old roommate I had. Her name was Bev, and we were right out of college. We had a room, we got this condo, there were 4 of us. We had more fun than you could shake a stick at. And we didn't drink a lot then. You know, we were kind of churchgoers, and, you know, we were chasing boys like crazy, and we cooked together, and we did all kinds of canoeing and kayaking. And did I mention boys? So, you know, we had a blast. We really did. And so Bev and I had 4 different apartments together. And so we really had a good time. And so when I moved off to Clearwater, you know, she had gotten married and moved in with her husband, and he was a golf course designer. So they lived kind of a fancy Tony life. And you know, I moved off and I kind of got a different kind of fancy Tony life. And when I came back to Orlando or Winter Park, we would go to this little club called Harper's Tavern, and they had this great little band called Too Easy, and we would all go and listen. And when I came back from Clearwater, I hung out with my old squad. And so, but Bev wouldn't hang out with us. And I was like, Bev, why don't you come with us? Why don't you? So I asked her 3 times. And the 3rd time she said, I don't like who you are. Hurt. And I was like, I don't, what do you mean? I'm the same person. She goes, no, you're not. You're selfish, you're self-centered, and you're boorish. And I want nothing to do with you. And I was like, oh, that hurts. So I go back to my table, and do you all think I'm self-centered, selfish, and boorish? And they're like, their response is, we all are. So, I didn't really give a thought, And so I was like, okay, but that hurt my heart because I really loved Beth, So, I wrote her a letter but I knew what she had seen because God was the center of my life and she saw that it had been occluded. And that's what she had seen. She saw that, I didn't see it. So, I wrote her a couple of letters. I tried to call her, and I wanted to talk this out. Tell me, what can I change? Because I didn't want to be that, because those are bad words. I don't want my character. I don't want that to be my character. I just really didn't. But at that point, it was unable for me to change, because I had chosen a path, and that was just kind of where I was going. So, her child got very, very sick. And so I sent, some coloring books and some snacks and things. And I had heard that she just threw it in the trash. Didn't even, accept it. And so that hurt even more. And so she was on my amends list, because I really wanted to, because that had hurt for, 25 years, 30 years. So I put her on my amends list, and I wanted that done quickly. And so I went to Winter Park. I knew where she lived, and I knocked on the door, and she didn't answer the door. Called the house, did not answer the phone. And, so I have to just let that lie, and that's still out there and it hurts. And that's where, one of those things where, I've talked to a couple of my friends that know her, and I said, if you see her, please let her know that I quit drinking and my character you've seen, my character's changed. And if you talk to her, please tell her I would like to talk to her and, see what's up. Because I really did not mean to hurt her, and I really didn't mean for my character to change as much as it did. I was unaware that it had changed. And, but 10 years, nothing. So, I don't know if she's alive or dead. She has no social media, so I can't stalk her. Husband has no social media. I do know that her daughter graduated high school, so that's all I've been able to find out. So, I just have to let that go. And, that's the consequences of my behavior. And that's it. So So, you know, it was all true at the time. So, I have run out of material. So, I'm way early. So I don't know if you guys have questions or want to share some of your men's stories, or, I was afraid I was going to be one story short.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
As always, you do a great